My fiancée said, "I need to explore my options before we marry." I replied, "Go ahead." Then I explored my option to cancel everything. She was shocked when the venue called about the cancellation. I, 29M, thought I had my life figured out. 6 months away from what was supposed to be the perfect wedding, everything seemed to be falling into place. The venue was booked, deposits paid, guest list finalized. My fiancé and I had been together for 4 years, living together for 2, and I genuinely believed we were ready for the next step. That belief shattered on a Tuesday evening when she came home from her girls' night with an expression I'd never seen before. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, fidgeting with her engagement ring, and dropped a bomb that would change everything. She told me she needed to explore her options before we got married. She explained that she'd been talking to her friends, and they'd convinced her that she was too young to settle down without experiencing more of what life had to offer. She wanted a break from our relationship to see what else was out there, to make sure I was really the one. I sat there, stunned, as she continued explaining how this was actually healthy for our relationship, how taking time apart would make us stronger, how if we were truly meant to be, we'd find our way back to each other. My initial reaction was anger, but something else kicked in almost immediately, a cold clarity that surprised even me. I looked at her, nodded slowly, and told her to go ahead. I said if that's what she needed to do, then she should absolutely explore her options. The relief on her face was almost insulting. She thanked me for being so understanding, kissed my forehead like I was a child, and told me she loved me for being so mature about this. She promised it would only be a few weeks, maybe a month, just enough time to get it out of her system. That night, she packed a bag and went to stay with her sister. I sat alone in our apartment, staring at the wedding planning binder we'd spent months putting together, and made a decision that would define the next few weeks of my life. If she wanted to explore her options, I was going to explore mine too. But my exploration wouldn't involve dating other people. It would involve exploring my option to completely cancel our wedding and move on with my life. The next morning, I started making calls. First to the venue, a beautiful lakeside resort we'd fallen in love with during our venue hunting. The wedding coordinator was sympathetic when I explained we needed to cancel due to a change in circumstances. She informed me that according to our contract, we'd lose about 60% of what we'd already paid, but we could get back roughly $4,000. I told her to proceed with the cancellation immediately. Next was the caterer, then the florist, then the photographer. Each conversation was easier than the last. The band was understanding, the cake decorator less so, but everyone processed the cancellations. The deposits we'd lose were significant, but not devastating. The money we'd get back would be enough for me to make a fresh start somewhere else. By Thursday, I'd canceled everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the music, even the honeymoon reservations. I'd also started looking at apartments in the city where I'd received a job offer 6 months earlier. An offer I'd turned down because my fiancé didn't want to move. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. It was my fiancée, and she sounded frantic. She told me the venue had just called her about the cancellation, asking if she wanted to retrieve any personal items we'd left there during our final walkthrough. I confirmed that yes, I had canceled the wedding. I explained that she'd asked to explore her options, and canceling our wedding was my option. If she wanted to be free to see what else was out there, then she should be completely free. No wedding hanging over her head, no pressure to come back to me. She was speechless for several seconds before asking if I was out of my mind. She said she never meant for me to cancel everything, that this was supposed to be temporary. She insisted she just needed a little space to be sure about us. I told her I appreciated her honesty about needing to explore and that it had actually opened my eyes. I realized I'd been settling too. I deserved someone who was completely sure about wanting to marry me, not someone who needed to shop around first to make sure she wasn't missing out on something better. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. That weekend, she showed up at our apartment. I was packing when she arrived, boxing up my things for the move I'd already arranged. She looked around at the half-empty living room and asked what I was doing. I explained that I'd accepted that job offer in the city and would be moving within the week. Since she wanted space to explore, I figured I'd give her all the space she needed. She could keep the apartment. It was her name on the lease anyway. She sat down hard on our couch and started crying. She said she never wanted this, that she just needed time to feel more confident about our relationship. She accused me of throwing away 4 years together over a simple request for space. I sat down across from her and explained that her request wasn't simple at all. She'd essentially told me I wasn't enough for her, that she needed to see if she could do better before settling for me. I told her that someone who truly wanted to marry me wouldn't need to explore other options first. She tried to argue that I was twisting her words, but I pressed on. I asked her directly if she found someone during her exploration who seemed better than me, would she have come back? The long pause before she answered told me everything I needed to know. She finally admitted that she probably wouldn't have, which confirmed what I'd suspected. This wasn't about needing space or being sure about us. This was about keeping me as a backup plan while she looked for an upgrade. I told her I respected her honesty, but I wasn't interested in being anyone's safety net. I deserved to be someone's first choice, not their consolation prize. Update 1. Moving to the city was the best decision I could have made. The job was challenging in all the right ways, and I threw myself into building a new life. I found a great apartment, made new friends through work and a hiking group I joined, and started therapy to work through the emotional aftermath of everything. 3 weeks after I moved, she started texting me regularly. At first, the messages were angry, accusing me of being vindictive and cruel. She said I'd destroyed our relationship over her honest communication about her feelings. She claimed I'd manipulated the situation to make her look like the villain. I didn't respond to those messages. Then the tone changed. She started texting about missing me, about realizing she'd made a mistake. She said her exploration had shown her that what we had was special, that she'd been an idiot to risk it. She begged me to talk to her, to consider giving us another chance. I still didn't respond. After a month of silence from me, she called my sister, trying to get information about how I was doing and whether I might be open to reconciliation. My sister, who'd always been protective of me, told her that I seemed happier than I'd been in years and that maybe she should respect my decision to move on. 2 months after the breakup, I heard through mutual friends that she'd been dating someone she met during her exploration period. Apparently, it hadn't worked out, and neither had the second person she'd dated. According to our friends, she was telling people that I'd been her soulmate and she'd ruined the best thing in her life. I felt sorry for her, but not sorry enough to reach out. I'd meant what I said about deserving to be someone's first choice. Update 2. 6 months later, I was in a much better place mentally and emotionally. Work was going incredibly well, and I'd been promoted to a senior position. I'd also started casually dating someone I met through friends, a woman who seemed genuinely excited about getting to know me and never once mentioned needing to explore other options. That's when my ex escalated her attempts to contact me. She somehow got my new address and started sending letters. Long, handwritten letters where she poured out her regrets and painted elaborate pictures of the life we could still have together. She'd even looked into rebooking our original wedding venue for the following year. The letters disturbed me more than I expected, not because I was tempted to respond, but because they showed how completely she'd missed the point of why I'd walked away. She still saw this as a relationship problem to be solved rather than a fundamental incompatibility in how we viewed commitment. I saved the letters, but didn't respond. Instead, I focused on my new relationship, which was developing into something genuinely healthy and mutual. Then she showed up at my office. I was coming back from lunch when I saw her sitting in the lobby, dressed in the outfit she'd worn on our first date. She stood up when she saw me, smiling hopefully, and asked if we could talk. I told her we had nothing to discuss, but she followed me to the elevator, talking rapidly about how she'd been thinking about our relationship and realized what she'd done wrong. She said she'd been immature and scared, but that losing me had taught her what really mattered. In the elevator, just the two of us, she broke down completely. She sobbed and told me she'd destroyed the best relationship of her life because she'd been afraid of missing out on something. She said the irony was that what she'd been afraid of missing out on had been right in front of her the whole time. I felt genuinely bad for her pain, but I also felt nothing romantic toward her anymore. The woman I'd loved wouldn't have needed to shop around before committing to me. This person in front of me was a stranger who happened to look like someone I used to know. I told her gently but firmly that ship had sailed. I explained that even if I were single, I couldn't be with someone who treated our relationship as optional. Trust, once broken in that particular way, couldn't be rebuilt. She begged me to reconsider, promising she'd changed, that she understood now what commitment really meant. But I knew that understanding born from loss and regret wasn't the same as the natural certainty I deserved from a partner. When the elevator reached my floor, I got out alone. I told her not to contact me again, and that continuing to do so would constitute harassment. That was the last time I saw her in person. Update 3. A year later, I married the woman I'd started dating during my recovery period. She'd known my story from early in our relationship, and it had actually strengthened our bond. She told me she admired how I'd respected myself enough to walk away from someone who wasn't fully committed, and she promised she'd never make me question her dedication to our relationship. Our wedding was small but perfect. Just close family and friends at a beautiful garden venue. No drama, no last-minute doubts, no need for anyone to explore their options. Just two people who were absolutely certain they wanted to build a life together. The night before our wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from my ex. It was a long message wishing me happiness and admitting that I'd been right to leave her. She said she'd finally understood that real love didn't require a comparison shop, and she hoped I'd found someone who appreciated what she'd been too immature to value. I showed the message to my bride-to-be, who read it, and simply said that my ex had learned an important lesson, even if it came too late for our relationship. Then she deleted the message and told me that chapter of my life was officially closed. She was right. The next day, as I watched my wife walk down the aisle toward me with absolute joy and certainty in her eyes, I knew I'd made every right decision. I'd refused to be someone's backup plan, and in doing so, I'd found someone who chose me first, enthusiastically and without reservation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone who wronged you. Sometimes it's simply refusing to accept less than you deserve and building something beautiful with someone who values what you bring to their life. My ex had wanted to explore her options, and in giving her that freedom, I discovered mine. The option to find real, committed love with someone who never doubted that I was exactly what she wanted. Looking back, I'm grateful she asked for that break. Not because I enjoyed the pain of betrayal, but because it forced me to recognize my own worth and refuse to settle for uncertain love. The woman who'd needed to shop around had done me a favor by showing me exactly who she was. And the woman standing beside me at the altar had done me an even bigger favor by showing me what unwavering commitment actually looked like. That's the real option I'd chosen to explore, a life with someone who never made me wonder if I was enough. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us. Please subscribe.